Hi you guys, this is Sharon from Sharon's Place. I'm going to cook supper for my husband who's working in the fields combining beans. And if you can see in the distance here, I've got squirrel that I'm going to wash and cut up. I've got a few sweet potatoes. I've got some turnip greens out of our garden. And in the distance there, that gold stuff is coral mushrooms. I'll show those a little closer. But for right now, let's get started. I am going to start by washing my greens and getting them on to cook. Then I'm going to wash and cut up the squirrel, get it ready to fry. Then I'm going to wash, separate, and get my coral mushrooms ready to fry. My husband gathered these from the woods. Don't they look good? This is my greens. I tore them into smaller pieces. They were select picked by me out of our garden. I'm going to put them on to cook. Then I'm going to strain that off, put some seasonings in them with some fresh water, and cook them till they're tender. Now I'm going to cut my squirrel up, and after I cut it up, then I'm going to wash it. I'm going to salt it, pepper it, flour it, and fry it. It's young squirrel, so the first thing I do is to take the legs off. There's one leg. These are the back legs. I'm trying to separate at the joint, the ball joint, right there. If you've never cut up squirrel before, that's how it's done. You have to wash it in order to get any loose hairs off of it or any contamination. There could be little shots that's in it that you have to get out. When I see the shots when I'm washing it and finish preparing it for cooking, I take them out with the knife. It takes a pretty stiff knife to cut them up. These are what's called gray squirrels. See here, y'all separate the back from the rib cage. I don't waste any of it unless it's like what they call shot up. If it's shot up, then it's not a good idea to cook that piece. I have 4 squirrels here, and there's just me and my husband. So I probably will just cut up these 3 and fry them and save the last one. There you go. That's cut up and ready. I like to wash off my cutting board quickly, and then I bleach it between uses. Now then, I'm going to wash the squirrel. I'll bring you back when I'm putting it in the skillet. Next, I'm preparing the coral mushrooms. Here's one. They grow like this in the woods. You can see why they're called coral mushrooms. They look like coral. Now the way that I clean them is I cut off the part that has all the dirt and everything where it was attached, and then I just separate them into pieces like this. They are very clean, no insects, just some leaf debris. See? They're very easy to clean. I like to keep them in fairly large chunks, and that's hard to do because they're so soft and delicate and spiny that they come apart too easily sometimes. But as I said, they're very easy to wash. If you want to, you can soak them in salt water. I haven't found a need to do that, and sometimes soaking mushrooms in water causes them to get a texture that you don't like. Anyway, you see how this is done. I'll bring you back when I get some of them ready for the skillet. These are turnip tops, turnip greens. When they get ready and they were boiling, I'm draining the first water off of them. Oh, they smell so good. Wish you could smell them. And I'm putting more hot water on them. I'm going to season them and put them back on to cook. I'm making a very small pan of greens because there's just the two of us, as I said. I'll bring you back and show you the seasonings. Okay, my greens are right here. I've put 1 piece of bacon, smoked bacon in it, and I'm going to put about a teaspoon of salt. They can always be salted more at the table, but you can't take it out. And I'm putting a couple of dashes of pepper, not quite a 1/4 teaspoon. Then I'm going to put my lid back on and let them cook while I prepare my sweet potatoes. Okay, here's my sweet potatoes. I'm going to peel them before I wash them, and I don't think this peeler is going to work very well, so let me try this one. That's better. When it comes to the hard parts where it gets smaller and gnarly, I use my knife. Then I wash them. And for cooking them on the stove where I want them to cook pretty quickly, I just cut them into slices or slabs. I'll bring you back when I get them on to cook. All right, I'm ready to start cooking. I'm going to put the sweet potatoes in just a little bit of hot bacon grease right there and cook them slowly. Normally I would salt them just a little bit, but there's no need since it's bacon grease. I have my other 2 skillets heating up. Here's the squirrel, washed, ready to go, salted and peppered. Here's my flour, and this is my skillet. It's a large skillet, and that's a large burner. This is a commercial type stove. I take my squirrel and I dip it on both sides in the flour. You don't want to cook this squirrel too fast. And if it's a little tough or seems a little tough, after you fry it just a little while, kind of slow, and it's light brown, you can put a lid on it and lower your burner. My grease is not hot enough yet, but I'm going ahead and flouring what I can of the squirrel to get it ready. It's a mixture of soybean oil, mostly soybean oil, and just a little bit of about, maybe a 1/2 cup of bacon grease in it to give the oil some flavor. This is the South down here, and as I have said before in previous videos, we do use bacon grease. Probably not the healthiest way of cooking, but it gives a lot of flavor. I also put just a little bit of bacon grease in the soybean oil for the mushrooms. I'm going to deep fry them. When my skillet gets hot enough, I will turn the burner down as I add the squirrel if it starts to sizzle and fry too quickly. See my greens cooking there. I think I need to turn that burner down just a little. I'm going to wash my hands right quick and stir the sweet potatoes. And when they get a little bit coated and tender, then I will put just a little bit of water in there and let them cook until they're done. I may not need to. I'm going to see how long it takes them to get tender, because when I put the sugar in, They've got to be tender when I put the sugar and the butter in them. And I like a little vanilla flavor. And when my husband makes them, he makes like a sweet potato pie. He gets them totally done, and they're waxy, and they're coming apart kind of in pieces. And then he turns his burner off. He's got his sugar in there, brown sugar usually. He's got vanilla, whatever else he puts in it, probably kind of a secret recipe for him. He gets a casserole dish ready, gets it greased. Then he takes his sweet potatoes and he makes chopped pecans in them, and he puts them in the, he does stir some marshmallows in them. Then he puts them in the casserole dish and layers marshmallows on the top, and all he does, puts it in the oven for, is just to brown the marshmallows and let them melt just a little bit and get light brown. He calls it a sweet potato pie. It's really good too, but sometimes he also puts it in pie crust and makes real sweet potato pies out of it, but the same way. They're delicious. Okay, my skillet is ready, and I turned it off while I was talking, and now I'm going to turn it back on and put my squirrel in there. Can you see how it's just sizzling lightly? I'm going to turn the burner up just a little bit, but I don't want it to get too hot. I have turned the burner off that I'm going to cook my mushrooms in. The backs take longer to cook, so they need to be in there more quickly than the other parts, and the back legs takes a little bit longer to cook. And as you can see, they're not frying just real hard or fast, because you don't want to burn them. They are a wild meat, so you want them to get tender. And of course, old squirrels don't really tender up very well. That's when I usually fry them a little and brown them, and then I put a lid on them and sometimes onions in them and a little bit of water, and I cook that flour off of them, and the flour becomes the gravy, but I cook it really slow with enough water that the gravy sauce doesn't burn. And that's a good way to have the old squirrels. You do that until they come off the bone or get tender enough to eat. Okay, that's a skillet full of frying squirrel there. Can you see that? And since these two are iron skillets, I have to be careful. I'm sorry, I'm probably making a racket with my microphone, but they are iron skillets, and because of that, they can burn pretty easily. The food in them can, because they get very hot and they keep a pretty high heat. While that's warming back up, I'm going to stir my sweet potatoes again. They are getting more tender, beautiful orange color. Just frying them very slow. I have salted and peppered the mushrooms before I put them in the flour. Now I'm just going to run my hand under them and bring them to the surface. I have plenty of flour in here, but the mushrooms will take a lot of flour because they have a lot of openings between them. Little fingers, I call them. These look like little fingers. And if you've never eaten them, they are delicious. Fried. I haven't had them any other way. Some of my friends say that they put them in soups and stews, so I'm sure they'd be good like that too. All right, I believe my skillet may be ready. I just put one in just to check it and see. And yes, it's frying slow. I don't want them to get grease sodden. You can probably hear them. It's so strange how they fry, almost like French fries. They move and draw up because of the moisture drying out of them. It doesn't take them long at all to cook. And I won't disturb them while they're cooking. My squirrel has slowed down a little too much, so I'm going to turn the burner back up. Well, I've got the food in cooking. I'll bring you back whenever some of it is finished enough that you'd like to see maybe how it looks. Okay guys, the squirrel is about done. You see that? Doesn't that look beautiful? Golden brown. Turn the light down. I'm fixing to put the sugar and vanilla and butter in the sweet potatoes. And as you can see over there, that's the last of the mushrooms, all golden brown. I'm about to take them up. And this is the greens, the turnip greens. Just about totally done. I forgot to tell you, and I went back and did it, but I like onions in it, so I put some onion flakes, dehydrated onion flakes in them. If you have some that you make yourself, that's great. Of course, fresh onions, I'm sure, would be best. I'm about to take up the squirrel and everything and finish off the sweet potatoes, and I'll bring you back when I got a plate up.